Hello everyone in cyber world, welcome back to another video. I'm Richard.
And I'm Jennifer, and this is our channel we call Poor Man's DIY. So last week we reviewed the longer Nano Pro. This week we're going to continue the review with the Nano Pro and the Rotary Extension.
Before we get started with the actual installation and assembly of the unit itself, let me explain exactly what this is. So the rotary device allows you to take tumblers, cups, anything cylindrical, and it allows you to engrave on it. How does this work? You have to realize that the lasers themselves only work on an XY axis, meaning they only go back and forth, up and down, or in angles of anywhere. So it all is on one single plane. It does not have the ability to go around curved items. So what this is going to do is the rotary itself, when you put a cylindrical item on here, the laser is only going to go back and forth. That's all it's going to do, and the rotary itself will spin the device, and as it goes back and forth, it will start finishing engraving the image that you want to put onto the tumbler. So this is just to hold it and to work the timing so that it spins it so that your laser can actually engrave. So now we'll go ahead and set this up. Before we get started, full disclosure, this is actually going to be done a little bit different from any of the other review videos that we have done in the past. Those of you who have seen our reviews probably realize that we like to open the box, take the item out, assemble it to show how well it's packed, how easy it is to install, and show that there is no time lapse in between there where we work on it one day, we come back another day and do it. We want to be able to show you that yes, we opened it, we were able to install it and get it to working all in one go. In this particular case, we've had some struggles, and because of that, we had a full video recording of it, but the struggles kind of throw things off. So I'm going to just let you know that we have some problems, but we're going to go ahead and talk about those, and in the end we'll give you a recommendation of what we think of this particular product. All right, so to begin with, let's go over what's contained within. All right, contained within the rotary extension box is the rotary main base itself. We have a riser. We'll explain what this is for. We have a little pad. You need to pay close attention to this. I honestly thought at first that this was just packing material, and I almost threw it away, but this is a very important piece. You have a single and double jaw, and we have what they refer to as studs. And what these three components do, they'll attach to the rotary device, and they're used to grip cups, tumblers, anything that you're going to be engraving that'll be put into this rotary. Lastly, we have what they refer to as the tailstock. The tailstock is what's going to be connected to the rotary, and in doing so, if you have a long item that's going to be on the rotary, instead of leaving it and hanging the weight on here, it may tip because of the weight. This just supports it on the other side, so you can put this on here. What's very important when you actually engrave using the rotary is that the item that's going to be engraved needs to be flat. You can't have it in an angle or it's going to distort when the laser starts engraving. So this just helps between the two of these, the chuck that holds it, and this just rests on top of it. That'll allow you to make a flat surface. Now let's go ahead and show exactly what we're going to have to do to install this and connect it up to the laser itself. Before we connect this to the actual laser unit, let's go ahead and kind of give you a general explanation. The actual Pro Nano, or Nano Pro, sits on the device too low in its current state, so that when you put that on top of this rotary, which is going to have a tumbler here, the laser head is at the same level. You can't do it. So this is going to allow you to place the laser higher up so that it will be above the surface of what you're going to be engraving. So it's just an extension for the top part. This pad here, the reason that this is important is when you're actually mounting this on here, the lift stock, you'll find that it is heavier on one side and it will fall. So what I learned after reading the instructions properly, that was my bad for not doing so, is that this just simply sits on the bottom and it makes it level. All right, now I'll be honest with you, I'm not too thrilled with that. They do have a little pads on here. If they're able to put pads on there, I would have liked them to actually had something that was already attached to it so that it remains level, and I don't need this. There's still a fear that this could get misplaced because it's not attached to anything. It just sits there, and then you put it on anytime you need it. So I would hope that in future builds that they do, that maybe somehow they just actually attach something to the bottom so that it stays level without the need of this pad. Okay, next. Exactly what these jaws are. The jaws themselves will be connecting up to what's referred to as the chuck. Let me show you how the chuck looks from the front. The chuck is going to have three different, let's call it arms, legs, teeth, something. All right, so you're going to be attaching these jaws to it. There's different ways that you can attach it, and obviously these are different sizes. So between these, you can grab onto something that's maybe wider, maybe a little more narrow. The studs, these here are designed to hold things that are a round spherical ball. For example, let's say a baseball. By attaching these on all three sides, it will grip onto the baseball and hold it. Another thing that might be used is for Christmas ornaments. It holds on well. Whereas cups are going to be different, and you won't actually use these studs to hold on to cups. That's when you're going to be using the studs. I'm sorry, the jaws. Now there's two ways of actually using the jaws. The chuck itself is made to expand and contract. So when using these jaws here, you can set it up so that it is on the outside and the arms are farthest out, and then you tighten it and it squeezes onto the item that you're going to be holding. Another option is you can do it in reverse. You can put the arms on the inside. Maybe it's just a thinner cup or something, and what you'll do is when you expand it, it will expand and grip using force pushing out rather than squeezing in. And you'll just find that some things maybe are too large on the outside to grip, so it's easier to go on the inside and push out. And it so happens I happen to have something here to explain what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and connect this up to you so you see a better understanding. But as you see right now, if I were to try and grip this from here, I need a pretty large setting on here to hold all the way around. Whereas if I use the inside, I can just put the jaws on the inside and apply pressure outwards, and it'll hold it like this as opposed to holding it like that. All right, so we'll just show you here how these are attached. Very simple. The studs have screws, threads, and you can just put them where you see fit so that it is placed when you expand and contract. This will hold on to the ball. I'm not going to put all three on these, but just to give you an idea on that one there. And then the same thing with the jaws. The only difference here is the jaws have a little place with screws, and those screws will go into here, so you can align them up, put the screws in there and hold it with the arm on the inside, or turn it the other way and do the arm on the outside. And the same thing with the double step here, jaws. You can make it really wide and hold these out further, and you can put them on the inside as well. So we're going to go ahead and set everything up, and we're going to do some tests on this thing here, and I'll be honest with you, we've already done some tests, and we've pretty much did some damage to it. But you need to do some tests. Unfortunately, I don't want to keep testing on other ones because these type tumblers aren't cheap. So we want to get this test perfected first before we actually do any real engraving. And so we're going to go ahead and show you how we're going to set up one set of jaws. And I think what we're going to do here is expand it and grip it from the inside. Now we're going to attach this to it, as I said, all on the inside, but if we put them lined up with all three of these holes to these three holes, it's going to be too close in the middle and it won't be able to stretch out far enough. So we're just going to send it off and use the bottom hole and the middle hole against the middle and the top so that it's a little bit farther out. And you'll be able to adjust to however you see fit for whatever it is that you're engraving. Obviously, the cups and anything that we're going to be engraving is not going to be exactly the same as what you're engraving. just use the Allen wrench that comes with this and the screws and you're done with that. Now, let me warn you on this one here, okay? This is used to loosen and tighten. The instructions that they have show that at some point, you're not going to be able to tighten this real well by hand, but there's these holes all along this. What they show for the instructions is this thing come with 2 Allen wrenches for different types of things that you have to attach. But what they use is they put the Allen wrenches in here and they can use that to spread and tighten because you get a better grip than what you can with your fingers. Now, the warning itself, these 3 arms that are attached to the chuck itself, if you loosen this too far, it'll come out, and they will actually fall off. All right, is it a big deal? No, it's not a big deal. However, you really need to pay attention to the instructions. On each one of these, there is a line. One has 1 line, one has 2 lines, one has 3 lines. These 3 things, when putting back on, must be put on a specific order to reattach it, or else this won't close right, it won't expand right. So I speak from experience. These things fell off on me, but that was a learning thing, and that was good that I learned because I got into more details and I realized they do have instructions that show you how you're supposed to reinstall these. So just be careful with that when you expand this, that at some point, if you overdo it, it is going to fall out. So you may want to consider changing the type of grips that you have on here, the jaws, so that you don't have to expand it all the way out and have these fall off. Now for the lift stock here. The purpose of this here is so that, as I mentioned earlier, it's so that you have something that's level between the chuck itself and the backside of, in this case, the thermos that we're going to be engraving. So in order to do that, this has the ability to rise and lower. So depending on whatever it is that you're going to be attaching, it will be able to lay flat. All right, this comes with a couple screws here, and the ends on the bottom, these ends are actually going to fit into these grooves here very easily by sliding it in. Now it's attached, and it's a matter of just tightening this. Now, that's it, but as I mentioned before, this is crucial. As you can see right now, this is kind of top heavy to the side because it's all leaning over here. So this base has to be placed on the bottom, and now it's pretty solid. Okay, so now here's a problem that I discovered. It's not a big deal, but it all depends on what you're going to be engraving. As I mentioned, we're going to be engraving this thermos here, and the thermos itself, if you try and put this on, I've got this lowered all the way down, and as you can tell, it's not sitting level. The only way that I'm going to get this particular thermos to work is I'm going to have to remove this. Now, we run into the problem, if we put this on and tighten this, whoops, if we put this on and just tighten it as is, it is back heavy on this one here, so I'm unable to do so very well. So although this here does not, although the lift stock in the back does not fit, I am going to go ahead and place this to the side with the pad. Oh wait, I'm sorry, without the pad because it's level now. And I can place this here and adjust the thermos so that we can take this level that also comes with the box and determine the right height. Now it's at the proper height that it's going to need to be. I should be able to tighten this a little bit better now. We'll go ahead and use the wrenches as we talked. And now when this spins, it should spin perfectly. This is just a support. That's all this lift is on the back. So now we should be good to go, and we're going to go ahead and connect it up to the laser. And let's see, we'll bring in our laser and we'll show you the problem here. As we mentioned, the laser here can't fit above the engraver, so we're going to attach the riser. All right, we're going to set the rotary aside for just a minute, and that's so that we can work on the laser and install the riser. On the bottom, the riser has an indentation that will sit on top of this, and using the same screw that you use to attach the laser itself is screwed into the riser. And now the riser has the exact same type of attachment that was on here originally, and we'll just put that in place up here and screw that on. And now the laser head itself is high enough where we can bring back our thermos here, and everything is going to be able to fit underneath here. So the next step we're going to do is actually connect up all the cables. On our previous video, when we reviewed the actual Nano itself, we showed how to connect some cables. Well, this has an additional cable or two that we're going to connect. The rotary device itself requires power. What's great about this is color coded to match the cables, as well as for those who cannot see the colors, you have images on here to help you understand what it is that you're going to be connecting. So the first thing that we have here is going to be the power to the unit that rises and lowers the lasers for focusing. All right, next we have a connection that goes to the accessory. In this particular case, this is going to be connected to the rotary itself. And then we have the cable that's going to connect to the laptop. And last but not least, the power. Okay, so here you have the two dots. What we're going to need to do is combine those into one by raising and lowering the laser. We have an up arrow and down arrow. All right, I think the red of the thermos is throwing the focus off, but hopefully you can see now that it's one clean dot instead of two, and that means that we are now at the perfect height to start the engraving on this. Okay, before we actually start engraving, we need to configure the software for Lightburn to make sure it knows exactly how to function. One of the things that we need to do is, in this particular case, we need to configure it and tell it how large the diameter of this item is. The box contains a tape measure that you can wrap around this, and what that will do is give you the radius of this. When you configure in Lightburn, you can put in the radius and it'll determine the diameter, or you can use, if you have one of these, a handy dandy caliper, which I use to get a measurement on how large this is, and so I have a diameter. Okay, well, we are finished. Let's see how it turned out. That actually looks pretty good. Keep in mind, there is a big difference between this and here. This is a white paint type substance that's on it, whereas this is engraving where it melted the whatever this coating is, so that it exposes the metal underneath. So that's why it appears different and this isn't as bright. But overall, this turned out very nice. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritties and give you my final review and opinion on this one here. It's going to be a little bit involved, but I figured I might as well be honest about it. Overall, did do a great job. I am really happy with the results of this, okay? The issues that I have is, if you use this item and the rotary, and you have to place it underneath the laser, what I found is that you're going to have to move this around a lot, and you're going to have to do some settings in Lightburn until you get it to the right location. That's not a very big deal. However, if you only engrave tumblers like once in a while, you're going to have to go through this whole trouble of getting it tuned in so that it engraves exactly where you want it to, and everything works out. And then when you're done and you put this away, the next time you have to engrave, you have to go through that whole mess to get it aligned up again. So nothing locks in place and is easily ready to go. If this is something that you're going to engrave a tumbler on a regular basis, then it's actually really good in that you can set it up one time, take off a tumbler, put on the new one, hit engrave, it goes through it, take it off, and you could repeat it very easily, very quickly. In that sense, it works really well. The only problem that, like I said, is having to set it up and get it into the proper focus, into the location. I guess some of the ideas I would have is I might make some sort of a jig for this, be it a wooden platform that sits on the bottom here that I could place these in, and that every time I move it, I can go to flat engraving, and then when I want to do a cylindrical rotary engraving, I can bring these parts and fit them right into the jig, and they're right in place. Or if you don't have the will, ability, or skills to make such a jig, you could use some like tape and tape down to mark exactly where this has to be in place and where the laser has to be in place. Then it's just a matter of placing those down there, and you should be good to go. But you're always going to have to do some testing to make sure everything works fine. So in that sense, I'm not too keen on the idea that you have to readjust all the time. Does it work? Yes, it works. Will it work great if you want to do repetition? Absolutely. For onesie and twosies, maybe not so much for me. The other thing that I want to talk about is the chuck itself. Now, the chuck, for me, it was also something that I wasn't super thrilled about. It's actually kind of difficult to tighten and whatnot. The reason for this is, as I mentioned, these items here, if you expand it too much, they can actually fall off. So they're not actually locked into place where they move in and out. They're kind of free floating in here. What I've noticed is that as you tighten, if these things are perfectly straight and level as they are right now, it loosens and tightens quite well. If you apply any pressure to, even the slightest bit of pressure to one of these, it's now applying pressure in such a manner that this jams and it doesn't want to spin. So I have found myself having to take the item off, loosen it, put it back on, tighten it, take it back off until I get it to a point where I can tighten it without it getting stuck, or using the wrenches. Even then it kind of gets stuck. There's a place that you can loosen and tighten this so that it spreads out more, but when it's too loose, it also doesn't work well where it doesn't hold. So I'm not thrilled on the chuck itself. Once you have it set up and everything's gripped, everything is really nice. The stock here lift, very convenient. I've seen other ones that were nowhere near as nice as this, where you can raise this just with the turn here, and then balancing it is really simple. I like that. I mentioned earlier, I'm not fond on this one either, because I'm so tempted. I see something like this and I very well could just throw it away, not paying attention, just simply thinking that it's garbage. So would I give this a complete thumbs up? I'm going to have to say yay and nay, depending on the circumstances. As I said, I'll say one more time. If you're going to repeat this something, and let's say you do a business and you just want to make tumblers and you're going to use one size, because if you do multiple sizes, you're going to have to readjust to get to the second size and then readjust back to the first size. But if you're using one size item that you're going to repeat, this is fantastic. Clearly a thumbs up. Having to focus and reorganizing it over and over, it took quite some time. I'm used to working on any of my lasers. I put the piece of wood, acrylic, whatever I'm going to be working on, I put it in, I line it up, and boom, I'm good to go. This one here, it's line it up, test, oh, wasn't in the right place, line it, change the origin, change the home, change the settings until I get it fine-tuned, do a test run. I also found that there's some problems that I may have caused. I have to do some configurations, but what I noticed was that I tried to engrave a circle with crosshairs so that I can find out exactly where things are going to engrave in relation to the laser. And when I did go to do the circle, it came out oval shaped. So the measurements aren't right. It thinks this thing is larger or smaller, and so it's rotating too fast, and in the end, it doesn't make a circle, it made an oval. The way for me to correct that is I got to figure it out on the software to get it fine-tuned to make sure I have that correct. The other option for me was to take the circle and make it really thin so that when it becomes obscured again, it obscures right into a circle. Kind of a cheat way, not a perfect science, but it was something that worked. So the same thing with the logo. I actually crushed it in so that when it did engrave too fat, it came out to the size that I wanted it to. So, but those are not, they're not the responsibility of Longer. That's not their fault. I just need to get this fine-tuned. Overall, like I said, it depends on what you're going to use this for. I am pleased with the results, truly pleased. The Nano machine itself, I'm very happy with. I like this. I guess it's just a matter of getting used to everything here. Okay, so overall, you see that this might not have been our favorite item. It does work, as we've mentioned, and depending on how you want to use it, continuously doing the same thing over and over, it would be a perfect machine. But for our use, it wasn't something that we would probably make use of on a regular basis. Next week, though, we're going to continue with the review of the Nano Pro, where we have what is referred to as a slide extension. So until we meet again, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.